Let's get right into it. My name is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. And what we're going to talk about is reparations debate, right? Reparations from the government or reparations from the stock market. And the reason why we're discussing this particular issue is because I was online and people were having that should we advocate to get reparations from the government of the United States, or should we just try to get our reparations for participating in the private markets because we may not believe that the government particular pathway is going to actually be successful. So I didn't think that the situation was kind of really being put out there from a genuine standpoint. We're going to kind of get a little bit into it. And we're also going to kind of talk about my perspective on it and what I'm doing about this particular situation to try to put people in the best position to be successful based on what I think is going to be appropriate, right? And what we're going to also talk about, really, I want to really get in for the people that are pro reparations is what I think is going on with a lot of people that are bringing up these reparations debates. And as a person that is pro reparations and really believes that people should receive reparations, one of the things I had to learn is that there's a lot going on in this environment. And a lot of the people that are bringing these topics up are doing it for a certain reason that has very little to do with reparations. And once I started to understand that, it didn't put me in a position to where I was being distracted from the goal. Because one of the things I want people to really understand, in my opinion, is that if we're going to get reparations, we have to be focused on that. And we can't allow people to distract us from our particular goal of getting reparations, right? So if you can let me know what part of the country that you're coming out of, let me know that you can hear me, and we're going to get into it. One of the first things I want people to understand is that often when a person comes out against reparations, what's up, GC, is that they're going to come at you with what we call logical fallacies. And we went over this again, but we're going to reiterate, because often in this social media space, because it's an open air environment and anybody can do what they want, it allows people to do what they do in their normal life, even though normally that person may not have the ability to interact with you. So what they do is they bring to you what they do day to day. And often what happens is people argue situations from a logical fallacy standpoint, because that may be the only way they know how to argue it. And they may not be aware that that's what they're doing. So what we're really quickly going to go into is we're going to go into logical fallacies, because I'm going to show you often when people take the reparations debate, they often engage in this because, one, either they don't know how to do anything, or this has provided results for them over the course of their life. So it's kind of like a fallback mechanism to them. So let's go ahead and get into these logical fallacies real quick, and then we're going to go and kind of break this out to a larger context, right? So let me show you this video real quick.
In academic writing, we use logic to present arguments in a convincing manner. When there is an error in logic, it's called a logical fallacy. In the words of author Dorothy Seiler, these are arguments that don't work. They can sound convincing, but upon further inspection, the evidence doesn't hold up. Even if the claim is true, the evidence must support the claim for the argument to be effective. Here are the 5 fallacies we'll be going over today. Understanding fallacies is crucial to avoiding them in your own arguments and recognizing them in others, even when they are hidden behind a facade of confidence and colorful words. First is hasty generalization. This is when you make a conclusion on an entire group based on a small, arbitrary sample. Consider a trip to Austin. Based on the folks I met on my trip to UT, I can tell you that all of their students hate the Aggies. As much as I may feel this is true, this argument uses faulty logic. You can't generalize a population based on the impressions of a few people, whether they were good or bad. The claim that all UT students hate Aggies is not sufficiently supported by the evidence presented, making this argument a logical fallacy. The non sequitur is another fallacy, Latin for "it does not follow." This is essentially a conclusion with no clear connection to the evidence used to support it. Consider this. Valerie is a doctor, so she must be able to cure my sore throat. Not every doctor is a doctor of medicine. Dr. Valerie's PhD is in English and rhetoric, which is a major accomplishment in its own right, but no English program has curing the common cold as an elective. The evidence then has no real connection to the claim, and the argument fails. The slippery slope argument claims that extreme consequences will result from a particular action without any real evidence to show for it. For example, if I don't go to this party, my best friend won't like me anymore, and I'll never have any friends. While missing out on one party might make your friend mad, it's a slippery slope to assume you won't have any friends. This claim has no evidence to support it, making the argument a logical fallacy. The bandwagon argues that if everyone else is doing it, so should you. For example, I can't afford the new Pi phone, but everyone has one, so I'll use all my savings to buy it. As tempting as it is, you shouldn't jump on every trend that passes by. The argument is supported purely by social pressure, making it a logical fallacy. The red herring is another common fallacy often used in the media. This is when an irrelevant topic is introduced for the sake of drawing attention away from the true issue in an argument. Consider a school board meeting on teaching styles. The teachers are debating what style of teaching is most effective until one teacher changes the subject. We can't begin to improve our teaching until the budget is balanced. While funding in education is a growing concern, an institution cannot grind to a halt anytime there are complications. The off-topic comment of the budget draws attention away from the purpose of the debate, making it more difficult to find a solution to the central issue of teaching. Any constructive debate can stop on a dime at the sight of a red herring, so you need to be prepared to spot it. Well, there you have it. 5 of the most common logical fallacies. Fallacies like these are present in pop culture, news stories, and everyday conversation. The more informed you are about them, the easier they will be to identify. We have more information on.
Okay, so the reason why we want to go after those logical fallacies is because I wanted people to understand that often when we're talking about reparations, a lot of the people that are critical of reparations are just coming at you with a logical fallacy. And they're using that to support their whole argument. And they're hoping that they can just get you so emotionally charged up, you engage in a logical fallacy, which is really not, to me, a good use of your time because it's a logical fallacy. So we talked about before, you can't argue whether or not Michael Jordan was the best tight end to ever play for the Michigan Wolverines because Michael Jordan never attended Michigan. Therefore, he couldn't have played for the Michigan Wolverines, and therefore he couldn't play tight end. So therefore, he can't be the best tight end. And so often when we're talking about reparations, the person's argument against reparations, the whole premise of the argument is based on a logical fallacy. And then what we do is we argue the logical fallacy, right? Which gets that person what they want. But why am I arguing a logical fallacy? So let me give an example. People will say, well, who's going to pay for reparations? How's the government going to find the money? Or why would I pay for reparations? Because my family never owned slaves. Now, reparations doesn't have anything to do with your family owning slaves, but this is the logical fallacy. So what they do is they create, to me, a red herring or a non sequitur, right? And so this is like a red herring. I don't really want to talk about reparations. So what I do is I'll bring this point up and make it seem like it's attached to reparations. And then we argue this point because I don't want to deal with reparations. But let me show you something real quick, right? So this is from the Congressional Research Service, right? U.S. foreign aid to Israel. And I don't know if you can see this because I can't zoom it as much, is that to date, right? And I think this was in February 18th, 2022. U.S. has provided Israel with $150 billion of non-inflated adjusted dollars in bilateral assistance and missile defense funding, right? At present, almost all U.S. bilateral aid to Israel is in the form of military assistance. And from 71 to 07, Israel also received significant economic assistance, right? In 2016, the U.S. and Israeli government signed their third 10-year memorandum of understanding, also known as the MOU, on military aid covering 2019 to 2028, right? Under the terms of the MOU, the United States pledged to provide, subject to congressional appropriation, $38 billion to military, so $33 billion in military financing grants, right? Plus $5 billion in missile defense appropriations to Israel. What's interesting, and I was talking about this the other day with somebody, is that when we have these critiques of reparations from a financial standpoint, what we get is that they never talk about other countries that are receiving U.S. taxpayer dollars as being something that can't fit within the budget or something that the United States taxpayer shouldn't be responsible for, right? And so what we see is that because that's a logical fallacy, right? They know that U.S. taxpayers finance other countries, but for some reason they try to use this. And then what I'm supposed to do is argue whether or not they should do it. But with other countries, that's never the argument. Nobody ever says, how come U.S. taxpayers are still financing military grants to Israel? It's just something that does. The Congress votes for it. It goes through because they've already told Israel over the next 10 years, we're essentially going to give you this much money. It's just now we just got to do the paperwork. And that's what I want people to understand, is that many times we are argued down with a logical fallacy. If you're against reparations and you can actually come with an economic argument or an argument based around civics, I respect it. I may not agree with it, but I respect it. But what I'm not going to do is a non sequiturs and a red herrings, and we're going to kind of go into that, right? So here, I personally believe we can do both. I don't believe it has to be either or. And the reason why, there's a lot of reasons, but my business model is not based on I have to keep my audience's attention just to do one thing. I actually know how to get my money out of the market. I'm not trying to be a media personality. I'm not trying to be a media celebrity. I'm not trying to get a certain political party. I'm not trying to get certain political donors to give me money to promote what I do. Therefore, I don't have to carry water for any group of people because I'm worried that they're not going to like what I said about a particular issue. Many Black people in media, I don't care what side of the particular aisle they claim they stand on, because of the way this system is constructed, they're trying to get financed through somebody else. They're trying to get access to platforms that other people control. And they often have to be worried about what they say in certain situations to not make those people get upset at them. And that often dictates their comments on certain issues, right? Especially when we're dealing with full-time entertainers. We have many people in the political space, which are really political entertainers, and they're allowed to set the tone around certain topics, but they're worried about losing access as an entertainer to certain platforms. And then that directs what they say about certain issues, right? That's the first thing. I believe we can do both. I don't believe it has to be an either or, right? I believe that we can be involved in commerce. We can be involved in utilizing the capital from our community. And I think a lot of people confuse capitalism and the community inside the capital inside your actual community. And because of a lot of miseducation, we think wanting to use the capital in our community means that we want to engage in capitalism. And if you do, there's nothing wrong with that. But many Black people can't engage in capitalism in the form in which they've been taught because they don't have that kind of capital. But you do have a capital in your community. The question is, have you identified and what are you using it for? And we can also be about getting reparations. I believe we can do both at the same time. Okay. And we know that reparations is a hot button issue, and it gets a lot of attention. That's why a lot of people use it. Okay. They got a big audience. They can use it. They can get their audience engaged, and it allows them to promote themselves to the audience. And the response to reparations often breaks down into these particular situations, right? First one is going to be attention. I just want to get attention, also known as attention-seeking behavior. And we see a lot of this on the internet. So how can I get some attention to me? Many times a person would talk about reparations, not because they're really interested in the topic. It's because it's a way to get attention to themselves. Why? Because it's a hot button topic. It's just like talking about relationships with Black people on YouTube. Or if I was to label this around the passport bros, I would have 300 people in here. When Kevin Samuels was alive, when you put something around Kevin Samuels, you got a lot of people, right? It allows people to get attention to themselves. It has nothing to do with whether or not they want to really have a discussion about reparations, because many people can't have a discussion about reparations because they don't really understand how reparations will be outlaid. They don't understand budgets. They don't understand financing. They don't understand any of these things. So they just come up with a red herring or non sequitur argument, and they get people caught up in that because most people don't realize that they're arguing a non sequitur or they're involved in a red herring argument. Somebody talks about reparations, I need to get the convo back to me, right? Somebody's talking about reparations, and I don't like what they're talking about because often I don't think that I can talk about it. So what I do is I try to create a scenario or mechanism to get the conversation back to me. So what we do is I create a non sequitur. I create a narrative that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. And we see this, right? So I was watching a sister show, I want to say maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. And there was a guy on, and he was quote unquote against reparations. And his attitude was, well, if we give Black people reparations, they're not going to spend the money wisely. That's a non sequitur because it doesn't have anything to do with reparations, right? Or how are we going to pay for reparations? And you have to understand is that many people do non sequiturs because I don't want to talk about the topic and I want to get the conversation back to me. And what they do is they just insert themselves into an environment, and their goal is to get everybody talking about what they want to talk about, not the actual topic. And that's just what they do. And then if they're successful at getting you to argue a non sequitur, they won because why? Well, it's a non sequitur. Right? It has nothing to do with the original topic. It's really a sidetrack, but I'm able to get you to get involved with it. We also have the red herring, right? Last night I was talking to a sister and we were talking about the options market. And, you know, what I was doing in the options market and my perspective of why some people have challenges. And a person came with a comment that had nothing to do with what we were talking about. And I'm not down in the sister because she got a right to run her platform the way she run it. I would have just ignored the comment, right? But the issue was that this person didn't want to talk about what we were talking about. So what they tried to do was bring a whole sideshow conversation into the deal to get us talking about that, because why? That's how they get the attention to come back to them. And many times when people talk about reparations, this is what they're doing. It don't have nothing to do with the topic. It has to do with what they want to talk about. And so they inserted to hope you take the bait, and now you get sidetracked. And one of the ways in which I've been successful is I'm able to focus directly in on what I got going on and what I'm doing, and I don't worry about nothing else. Why? Because it don't have anything to do with me. Because many people are just talking to talk. They're not going to do anything. They're just talking to talk. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what works for them. I try to do what works for me. And that's what I want to tell people that are involved in this reparations deal. Don't get sidetracked by this. Another reason why they don't want to do the work that's involved. If a person doesn't want to do the work that's involved with something, they're not going to ever be for it. Why? Because I don't want to do the work. So I have every reason why this won't work, because I don't want to do the work. And no matter what you tell them, they're going to always come up with another reason, because I don't want to do the work that's involved. Next thing, right? The reason why they don't want to do the work that's involved is because political goals take time. They need to be organized first. They take work and they take effort. Real political goals, having real political advocacy, takes an organization. You got to be organized around it. It takes real world effort, and it takes real world time. And many people don't want to do that. Therefore, they're never going to have any political advocacy. What a lot of people don't understand is that, like I said, another red herring. Your political issues have nothing to do with who you vote for. Your political issues have everything to do with the fact that you're not organized, and you won't go out in the real world and do the effort and the time that it takes to build political advocacy. If you have no political advocacy, you have no political organizations that work on behalf of your group, you don't want to take the effort, you don't want to take the time, you voting for another group won't change anything. Because your real problem is that you're not organized, you don't want to do the effort, and you don't want to do the time. You changing who you vote for and voting day don't change anything. Right? But when I don't want to do the work that's involved, I argue about who I vote for. Got nothing to do with anything. You don't have an organization that's designed to get you what you want. So it doesn't matter who you vote for, right? Because you don't have an organization that's designed to get you what you want. And why won't do when we have an organization? Because I don't want to take the real world effort, and I don't want to take the real world time. Because what does it mean? I got to cut the internet off. I got to cut the TV off. I got to leave the house and go build the actual organization. Right? And I got to take the time, money, and effort to do that. I don't want to do that. Right? So then what I do is I just argue over what's the next hot political point. Person don't want to do the work, so they find a way out of the situation. So saying reparations is not possible is appropriate for the person that don't want to do the work. Because if I don't want to do the work, nothing's possible. Right? I'll say, hey, you know what? I can't get good grades in school. Why? Because I don't want to study. I want to play. So I can't get good grades. The teacher's against me. The test is slanted against me because I don't want to do the work. So I find my way out of the situation because I don't want to put the work in it's going to take to be successful. Are some things impossible? Yeah. It's impossible for you to beat LeBron in one-on-one. No matter how much work you put in, you're never going to pull that off. But we're talking about things that are possible for you to do. Many times people that don't want to do the work, them saying something is not possible is a way for them to get out of the situation. Because what they don't want to say is, I don't want to do it, which would be a much more appropriate thing to say so we can move on to the next person. But many people are not adult like that. So what they do is they come up with an excuse and just straight up saying, hey, I don't want to do that. I'm cool. Right? C, person don't think it's important in real life. Many people have lived their whole life without any kind of political advocacy. They live their whole life without having certain things, and they've normalized it. So in their mind, it can't be important, right? It can't be important because I never had it. I don't know what I never had. Therefore, I'm not tripping on not having it because I don't know what it's like to have it. So I don't know the contrast. So then it's really not important, or they just may not be into it, which is cool. Everybody's not going to be into this particular thing. That don't make them no less of a black person. I'm talking about the people that aren't really legitimate and they just won't come out and say, I'm not into reparations because you know what? That don't get them any attention. I have to try to create a non sequitur or something of that nature to get attention, because really what I'm here to do is to get attention, because they would be honest and just say, hey, I'm not into reparations. Okay, cool. We'll go to somebody else. But because I want to get attention, I have to say, well, if we get reparations, all black people are going to do is buy a bunch of weave. That gets me attention because now I'm controversial, yada, 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 which is really what I want from the gate anyway. Okay, let's go to the next one. We just talked about this. A lot of people have realized, especially on the internet, if I just can be a contrarian, it gets me attention. If everybody say the sun is orange, I say, no, the sun is purple. And I just yell it real loud with a lot of passion. Or if they put me on a panel and everybody's saying, hey, you know what? We need to do 1, 2, 3. I say, no, we need to do 4, 5, 6. Why? Because I get attention because I'm the contrarian. And many people are drawn to a contrarian message, even though it's not even really like a legitimate message. But just the fact that it's against what everybody else is saying, that's what they're drawn to. Now, they're not going to do nothing in the real world, but they just want to be the contrarian, right, from an entertainment standpoint. And that's kind of like their entertainment angle. I'm just going to be a contrarian. And many people that are against reparations, they're not against reparations because they're really against reparations. They're against reparations because it allows me to be a contrarian and to build an audience based on that. Right? And then that not allows me to get the attention that I desire. Okay? Controversy sells to bored people. Most people are bored. Right? They're horribly bored. Anything controversial sells to them. Therefore, if I can create controversy around reparations, right, being for or against it, I can sell that back to people that are bored. And it works. And these are a lot of things that people are utilizing in this particular space. They got nothing to do with reparations. It has everything to do trying to kind of promote their entertainment career. In my opinion, right, we need to focus locally. I'm not a fan of national movements with no local footprint. And a lot of the reparations talk, I don't see in the real world. I just see it on the internet. Right? I don't see it in the real world. And that's one of a lot of times, a lot of the challenges for these internet movements is there is no presence in the real world in these actual areas. It's just all some internet stuff because it's a very low barrier to resistance. It's very low barrier to entry. I can easily, for me to get on Twitter or get on YouTube or get on a panel on YouTube and talk about reparations, and nobody in the real world is expecting me to show up. Right? And in my opinion, we have to build this locally and start producing candidates that are advocates for us in this particular area on the local area. So as we send them to these houses, the state house, also the DC, they're advocates for us in this area from a local standpoint, as opposed to I'm just talking about it on the internet and I'm trying to build an internet audience as being a cheerleader for or against it, but nobody can find you in the real world. And I would encourage people, if you're for reparations, I learned this from my brother Huff, is that in most local elections, nobody votes. The biggest voting comes from the national election. So as we get more localized with the election, we get less and less voters. And because many people are not politically engaged. But in my opinion, the push is going to have to start on the local level and move up to the national. I'm not a fan of starting national with no local presence, but everybody's different. So the people that are fans of that, they could go do that. But I would encourage people that believe in local politics. Are you asking your local representatives, are they going to advocate for you on behalf of reparations as they move to the state houses and also as they move to DC? Because I think that's really where the power needs to be built. We talked about in this online space, many people are worried about keeping an audience or building an audience, right? And sorry for the typo, it should be an audience. That's what their goal is. I want to keep an audience. I want to build one. And that's what motivates all their behavior, right? Why? Because one, that's how they support themselves. See, if I didn't trade, one of my massive sales mechanisms would be what? YouTube. Because it would be the YouTube and the social media is how I engage my audience to drive the product sales. See, so I can get my money out of the market. Or let's say I had a service-based business. I would be able to get my money with my service-based business, whether I came on YouTube or not, right? Or I had a product-based business that wasn't based on social media. I would be able to get my money out of my product-based business that's based on social media, whether I came on social media or not. Or if I'm in real estate, I can make my money on real estate transactions, whether I'm on social media or not. But many people, this online space is how they support themselves. So therefore, they got to do whatever they got to do to keep their algorithm ranking high, because that's how I make my money. It's how I pay my bills. I'm an online entertainer, right? I don't believe in online influencers. I believe that they're online entertainers, right? So they have to say what they need to say in a situation to keep their algorithm ranking up, because it's how they support themselves, or it's how they want to support themselves. Many people are trying to build an online presence so they can support themselves. Therefore, what do I need to say to make sure the algorithm sees me so I can support myself? You know, you got a guy now that's going around the country and getting paid to talk on online publications. He has to say whatever he has to say to stay relevant enough to get paid to talk on online publications. That's what he has to do. That's his business model. Whatever he has to say it. Because if he's not controversial, if he's not a contrarian, if he's not interesting, if he's not engaging, right? And the numbers on his videos drop, then what happens? People stop paying him to come on, which means what? He now got to go do something else. Therefore, why would I buy into what he's saying when I know how his business model is built and what's motivating him? Because before he started jumping on the internet doing this stuff, nobody knew who this dude was. And many times when you're looking at an online entertainer, many of them didn't have 2 cents to rub together till they figured out how to make money on the internet. Even though they were grown people, they never saw no real money till they got on the internet, right? Therefore, they don't want to go back to a world without the internet because they don't know how to get money without the internet. So they just like a drug dealer that's stuck, right? I only had money selling drugs, so I can't never stop selling drugs because I'm worried about what life look like if I can't sell drugs. So you got to understand this is what motivates a lot of these people's behavior, right? Is that they don't know how to do it without staying in this particular position. So they're going to do whatever they got to do, right? Another one, attention is the new God, right? It's the new God. And I don't know if y'all used to watch the show American Gods, right? This is the God of new media, right? Attention is the new God, okay? There was never a time in the history of the world where you could get this much attention from so many people so easily. And for many people, they don't ever want to go back to a world in which they weren't getting this kind of attention. Therefore, whatever they got to do to get this attention, some of it is socially, some of people is economic. If I'm not trending, if I don't have a certain type of numbers, if I don't have a certain rank in the algorithm, my income drops. Therefore, what? I have to be a slave to this God. I have to be obedient to this God. I have to keep feeding this God. I don't have a choice because I've decided that my relationship with this God is how I'm going to be successful. I can't do anything else. I can't fall back and say, man, I'm not going to do social media for the next 6 months. I'm just going to trade to get my money. I don't have that kind of skill set. I don't have a service-based business. I don't have a product-based business. I don't have real estate. So I have to keep feeding this God to get my money. So they got to do what they got to do. And when you understand that, then you understand what motivates people to do what they do. So yeah, let me get on here and say black people don't need reparations because every white person didn't have slaves. Every white person wasn't involved in the Holocaust either, but you're paying for that. So you got to understand is that this is what these people have to do to keep themselves going. And once you understand that, you don't even get mad at them. You understand a lot of these people boxed in financially. They don't have anything else they can do, right? If reparation gets my audience attention, then it's a go topic. Many people, and you understand this when you really start to understand marketing, they have to appeal to their market. Their market is going to desire different things over their lifetime. They have to figure out what is the thing my market desires and then, serve them that. Therefore, if my market wants to talk about reparations right now, because that's the hot topic, that's what I got to talk about. 2 more weeks, my market wants to talk about relationships. That's what I got to talk about. A week later, my market wants to. So when I'm serving that kind of market where they're constantly changing what they want to talk about, I have to serve it to them. And then I have to also tell my audience what they want to hear. So if I build an audience where they want to hear that we should be against reparations, that's what I have to serve them. It has nothing to do with how I personally feel. I have to give my audience what they want, because if I don't, they're going to leave me and go to somebody that's giving them what they want. Right? So part of being, right, obedient to this new God, right, is you have to also, right, be obedient to your audience. That's part of being obedient to this new God. You can't tell your audience what they don't want to hear, because now you're being disobedient to the new God, and they'll take everything from you. So you have to understand what motivates a lot of these people to do what they're doing. They have to stay in obedience, right? Because that's how they got everything. You know, if you never saw $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 a year in your life, and all of a sudden now you jump on YouTube and you making $30,000 a month, you're not going to stop doing YouTube, because you never knew how to make that money without YouTube. And you getting the attention. And really, for a lot of people, the attention is worth more than the money. So they're going to say whatever, they're going to do whatever they got to do. They're going to say whatever they got to say to keep their numbers up. Because why? I don't know nothing but this. This is the only way. I can't step away from this and pull them same kind of numbers income-wise, right? And when you can jump on a live stream and, you know, you are nobody in your local area, nobody knows you. In your local area, nobody knows you. You're a UFO. You can jump on a live stream and you can get 20, 30,000 people to watch you. You can drop a video and you can get 40, 50,000 people to watch the video, and then you're getting monetized off that. You're getting paid off that. Why would you go back to the real world where you a UFO inside your own city? Right? That don't make you feel good. So you're going to say and do whatever you got to do to keep this thing going. Right? Because this is all you know. This has been your success model. So this is what a lot of these people are stuck in. That's why I don't get mad at them. I understand what they're going through. Now, for me personally, right, I think so many of us are miseducated on the role of government, right? Finance. We don't really understand the markets. That if we're offered reparations, we take a lowball deal. That's really what I see with a lot of people that are talking about reparations. We don't really know what this country really can offer us. We don't really understand the money that's inside this country. We don't really understand some of the structural things that we've gone through structurally, to where I believe, in my opinion, they're going to play around with this reparations thing, and then they're going to lowball people. And because people don't really know what they should get, they're going to take a lowball deal. Right? And then once they give you that lowball deal, then they're going to turn around and say, well, we gave you reparations. You can't ask for nothing else. Now, they've been giving Anglo women affirmative action since the 70s. Right? So Anglo women been getting affirmative action since the 70s. They didn't give Anglo women affirmative action for 1 year. Anglo women get brought into minority contracts. They get brought into a lot of things based on them being a protected class, and they get the most out of every other group. That money goes back to white families, because most Anglo women are married to Anglo men. They didn't get a one-time deal. They have people around here talking about one-time cash payments. It must gonna be a one-time cash payment to me for $10 trillion, because that's the only way I would take a one-time payment. Right? So that's what people don't understand, is they're already framing this to be a lowball deal. But because I don't really know how, the real role of government, I don't understand the financial system, I don't understand the markets, I'm going to take a lowball deal. And then once they get that lowball deal, they're going to say, we ain't going to give you nothing else, because they framing it as a one-time deal. That's what I think people don't really understand. And so that's why I don't like people arguing. I would be trying to learn what's really in this country and what's really available to me, so I don't take a lowball deal. Because I don't want the state of Florida to say, David, we'll give you $250,000 and that's it. That's not enough money. Because I don't just want $250,000. I want structural change, right? Because we were structurally written out of the country. So I want a structural situation. I don't want just this little payout and that's going to be it. Right. And I think that's what a lot of people, because so many of our people are so uneducated in this area, because they don't spend any time focusing on this type of stuff. They spend their mind on a lot of BS. It's going to be easy to get them to take a low ball offer, and they're going to think they got something because they don't even know what they're supposed to get. See, when you don't know what you're supposed to get, you take anything because you don't know what you should get. So it's easy to lowball you. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. That's how this is being framed. They're going to go back and forth, go back and forth, go back and forth and say, okay, we'll finally give it to you. And it's going to be something real low. And so many people are going to take it because they're going to be like, well, we fought so much for it. Let's take this to say we got something, and don't realize once y'all take that, they're not going to give y'all nothing else because the deal got to be right from the gate. Right. And if the deal not right from the gate, you shouldn't take the deal. You should make them people create something that's long-term, not a one-time deal. Because like I said, white women did not take 1 year of affirmative action and say, okay, we cool. They've been getting affirmative action since the 70s, which has helped build out white families and bring wealth, bring government tax money into white families. And nobody's telling white women, y'all should take 1 year of affirmative action. Y'all should take 1 year of preferential quotas in colleges. Y'all should take 1 year of affirmative action in government jobs. Nobody's told them that. They've been getting that since the 70s. And that's what I think a lot of us don't understand, because what? Our conversation is not this type of stuff. So we don't even know what we should get. We don't even know what the deal is. Right? And I think that's our biggest issue, because we don't talk about this type of stuff. We got 100 people on the live stream. If I was talking about passport bros, I have 500 people on the live stream, and I have 30 dudes wanting to come on live to talk about passport bros, because they think their reparations is overseas with a foreign chick. And them governments ain't gonna give you nothing. Right? And low key, they pressing on some of them dudes, but that story gonna come out later, because y'all gonna keep going overseas and playing with the people. They don't have the same value system y'all got. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about helping people understand the markets is because they can understand things in a larger context, right? Many of us don't even really understand what kind of money is really available in this country. We've seen all this money they've given Ukraine, right? Over the past 2 years, billions of dollars are going to Ukraine. Nobody's saying how we're going to pay for it. Nobody's saying why are we responsible for that, because we don't have anything to do with that. The money's just going to Ukraine, right? We've cut so many people into favorable positions in this particular country, right? And many of us don't even understand this stuff exists because it's not something that is talked about on the day-to-day level in our communities. And once you understand how these markets actually work, you realize, yeah, they can give us this. Yeah, they can cut us into this deal. Yeah, it'll help if we got business loans and we got access to business capital. Yeah, we could be cut into this particular area of business, like the same way Native Americans can get casinos. You know, we don't understand how to have these kind of conversations because why? It's not something we talk about on a regular basis. So if they were to give me and the people I roll with, and I know through the markets, right, and they were to give us reparations, we wouldn't blow it. I know Erica, she go put it in real estate. I know the urban homesteader, he go do a business. I know GC got a tech play going on somewhere, right? I know Katrina Alexander know what to do with it. You feel me? I know Jimmy Williams and Corey Camp, they go put it into some real estate. I know Chastity, she got a business, she'll put it into some real estate. I know Lance will put it in some real estate. I know too many black people the way if they was to get something, they're going to go put it into something that's going to go get them some more money. They're not going to go spend the money. I don't have a network of black people that just gonna go spend some money as soon as they get it. They already got ideas of how they're gonna use that money to go get them some more money, because that's not my network, right? So I don't know black people that just gonna spend all their money at the mall. That's not my network. I don't hang around them kind of people because that's not what I'm into. You understand me? And that's what I want people to understand. A lot of us are going to get access to something, and because we don't know what to do with it, because it hasn't been something that we talked about before we got it, we gonna run through it. I'm not though. I know exactly what to do with it. Right? If they was to hit me with some money, I know exactly what move I would go make. It wouldn't be no hesitation because I know already what I need to do. And so that's why I'm so passionate about helping people understand the markets. So when something does happen, they know what to do because either they was waiting for or they already have been involved in the scenario, right? Because if Bitcoin go to, if I was to get a certain amount of reparations, I would go buy a bunch of Bitcoin. You don't have to go do that. That's what I would do because I 100% believe Bitcoin going back up, right? And we already seen Bitcoin hit a support level and it bounced back up. Can it bottom out again? That's cool if it does. I want Bitcoin to go to $5,000 so I can buy something. So I wouldn't go spend my money in the economy buying consumer goods because I don't have a desire for that. I have a desire to put my money in things that's going to go make me some more money, right? So that's what I want people to understand. I don't believe that we just need to focus on reparations and forget about, the private sector and try to improve ourselves over there. And because I don't just make my money, involved in business based off the internet, I don't have to tell my internet audience, well, we only going to worry about the markets and we're not going to worry about reparations, right? Because my business model is not just based on course sales. I actually can get money out of the market as a trader, right? So I'm not so based on, I have to keep my audience focused on engaging with me and buying my products that I can't introduce anything else to them, right? That's why I brought other people to my audience, because it's not about just me. It's about helping them get a better understanding of the world so they can navigate and get what they want to get out of this world. It ain't just about me, right? But everybody run their business different. So we got in the comments, and we're going to read the comments, man. We're going to get up on out of here. So this guy says, what would I think about the opinion of money dividends? I don't know what money dividends are. If you can give me some clarity on that, I can help you out, because I don't want to respond to it not really know what you're talking about. So Black American Television News says, I don't think they want to give us reparations money. They're too scared we will build Black Wall Street. Yeah, definitely. I don't think they want to correct the situation, because this country is based on the majority of Black people being at the bottom economically, right? So being at the bottom economically, socially, and politically, right? And I think if we kind of disturb that, they're going to have to figure out who else they're going to put there, right? And I think that's the issue. So Black Buddha, I appreciate the $10 super chat, man. Yeah, definitely. I spoke to somebody that I know that lived in a city with a really prominent Black male YouTuber. And I was like, does anybody in this city know this guy? And he was like, no, nobody in the city even knows this person. So they was living in the city. Everybody knew they was in the city, but they just never came out of the house. They was just on YouTube all the time. But they're presenting themselves as this prominent thought leader in this space, but they never came out the house. They're just in the house doing YouTube videos over and over again, because you got to actually go out in the world and work with people. That's too much work. It's easier for me to make a YouTube video, build a YouTube audience, selling some stuff, and I never got to deal with real people. Like, that's the play. And that's what you see. A lot of these people is on, in my opinion, their whole desire to be big on social is because coming up, they never got the attention they think they deserved for whatever reason. And that really motivates them, to really be somebody on social, right? And so they never going to let that go, because why? I finally got the attention I thought I should get. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people become a slave to it. And that's what I'm not really into. GC says they're going to try to spin it to some POC stuff that helps include more people. Exactly. And that's another thing I think they'll do. And because many of us don't have any political advocacy, they'll be able to do that, and they'll get Black people to go along with it, right? And you won't even realize that when they get done doing that, we won't have nothing, and somebody else will have everything that we advocated for, because that's what they do. He says, Bob Johnson says 3 trillion. I want $1 trillion just to myself. So y'all can have the other 2 trillion. I want the whole trillion to go to me and my family. So y'all can break down the other 2, right? I just think we don't really realize what was really benefited from us, and then how we was cut out of everything, so we couldn't benefit from none of it. And it was deliberate. It wasn't done accidentally, and it wasn't done by individuals. It was part of the structure of this particular society, right? And so something that Ebony says in Detroit, it needs to be structural, multi-generational. Like I said, the same way that affirmative action is for white women. It's structural, it is multi-generational. It didn't just happen to white women to get affirmative action for 1 year. They've been getting affirmative action since the 70s. So that's gone across generations for them. And they benefited from that. Okay, I don't understand that question, but you know what? Let me do this real quick. I want to say peace to you. So Tia Z says the Bush administration found that Anglo women were the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action. Yeah, definitely. You know, the reason why you see Anglo women in like engineering schools, a lot of schools of medicine, a lot of schools of science is because they're Anglo women. It's not just because of their test scores. That's false. You know, they've been allowed into these particular programs, you know, and so I think that's something that is not talked about because it's not supposed to be talked about. Because when they debate these things, they normally put a black person on it to defend it, but we get the least amount of benefit from it, especially black men. Black men get very little to no affirmative action policy. Right? That's why I don't argue with people, because I don't get benefit from it anyway. So what am I arguing for? Ebony J, appreciate the $9 super chat. So stimulus was an example of what happened when you give money without a plan. Luxury brands benefited. My circle saved up and came up, paid off debt, student loan, even with being in forbearance. And I agree. But see, this is my thing. I already have factored in that a lot of people, you know, because I actually deal with people. And like I said, I've been on social media for about 2 years now, as far as like being consistent with it. And so I realized that a lot of people would have no idea what to do with the money. But to me, that don't mean they shouldn't get it. Right? They should be, because like I said, it's not going to be a one-time deal. So you see, in my opinion, how already they're trying to frame it as a one-time payout. That we're going to give you the money and you're going to blow it. But if I'm going to get structural help, I could blow, you know, year one, I could mess it up because I figured out year 2, year 3, year 4. Because see, part of being black in this country, and this is something that I know GC can speak to because we a lot of times talk about a lot of these startup companies, is we're in a position to where financially and network-wise, to where if we make one mistake, we get written off. And everybody else can keep making more mistakes. You know, they can run businesses where the profit margins are negative in the double digits, and they keep attracting more and more financial capital. So I don't agree with this narrative that, okay, I take a black person that is thoroughly miseducated about this system. They don't have the right mindset. They often don't have the right education, and they get something and they blow it, that means they never should have got it. I don't necessarily believe that, because my question is, how come they only get one chance to make a mistake? You know, because I look at these public markets, I can show you companies. You know, we talked about Carvana. Carvana for over a decade had one profitable quarter in the history of their company. Nobody came in there and say, hey, man, you know, they doing the wrong thing with the deal because they can't figure out how to be in profit. They just kept getting more money because the attitude is that eventually they're going to figure it out. With it's us, we got a one-time deal. And if we can't figure it out that one time, it means we should have never been in a position. Everybody else get time to figure it out. They get to make mistakes. They get developed. They get tutored. They get mentored. We just got to figure it out. So if we get something structural, a person don't have to figure it out the first year. Because my thing with the stimulus is we can get stimulus every year. People are still in dire economic straits. A lot of people have not come out of the pandemic. How come they cut the stimulus off? Right? So I just think that we are so used to, I'm not talking about you, but I'm saying that we're so used to like a one-time deal that we don't expect more. Well, other people, they get support year in, year out, year in, year out, year in, year out. I was watching a documentary on North Korea. North Korea got support for decades from the Chinese and the Russians. Right? There was never expectation they was going to get a one-time payout and they was going to be able to build their country. They got payout from decades from the Russians and the Chinese because it was very important to them that they build up North Korea. So they just kept giving North Korea money. So Katrina says, us getting reparations isn't going to go too far as long as financial institutions can keep us out economically. I agree with that. But I think that we need to kind of maybe look at also structural change, right? And then maybe we need to build our own financial institutions, Katrina, because I know somebody talked about we can get a credit union with like, I want to say like maybe $250,000, we can start one, right? But I think if we start looking at structural stuff, it can help us because we do know we're locked out. That's something that Erica talked about earlier today with banking. But maybe we can do something that can provide a solution to it right? Until we can build ourselves up. Because what I want with reparations is for us to be cut into certain business sectors. Like, I think if we can say, hey, we got to get a certain percentage of payment processing for the marijuana industry, right? Because we know that's going to be a big industry. And so we got to get a certain amount of the payment processing. You know, I don't just want no cash payout. I want to be cut into deals. I think that can really benefit us. I want to be cut all the way into deals. Your urban homesteader says the country never does anything without a planned outcome. Definitely. And they plan it out 20, 30 years ahead of time. Oh, definitely. I didn't say you ain't saying they don't deserve it, but I agree a plan is needed. But some people never going to have a plan. But I just don't think it should be a one-time deal. So even if they mess it up in year one, it's cool. They're going to keep getting it, right? They'll keep getting it. And I think eventually what'll happen is if we can build our structure, we can help people try to figure out what they need to do, right? As opposed to just blowing it, you know, because a lot of people not even used to having no real money. So because of that, when they get some money, they just go crazy. Why? They're not never used to having money. You know, some people are not used to having any money. Like I said about this YouTube, some people, they never believed they was going to make $100,000 a year till they figured out how to do it on YouTube. They never thought they would do it in the you know, offline. So their mind is blown that I can make this money this way. And a lot of these YouTubers blow their money, quiet as kept. They blow right through their money. Because they don't realize, one, that YouTube is going to be short-lived for a lot of people. So $250 for a credit union, black people, credit liquidity pool of money to buy infrastructure. Yeah, there was a brother that I think was a Q. I think it was a Q. And he tried to start a credit union with the other Qs, but he couldn't get them to go along with it. You know, we so I'm saying, so we have enough organizations where everybody getting a paycheck where they can start a credit union, but it has to be what they want to do. But like I said, this is not our conversation. Where other communities, they know the importance of credit unions and things of that nature. Banks think, but they talk about this type of stuff. You know, we in this space, not everywhere. Like I said, I know a lot of people can talk about it, but in this space, the dominant conversation is what this celebrity said and you know, the passport stuff. And so if that's your conversation, it's easy to make, you know, if all I gotta do is give you a plane ticket and allow you into my country and you ain't gonna never ask for nothing else. You know, some people it's easy to make them happy. But you know, everybody different. I don't down nobody. They do what they do. And they do what they was gonna do before they ever met me. So Mr. Biden says reparations allow for us to have a war chest and a beachhead to battle against a system of white supremacy. I agree, you know, and at least we can do something with the capital in our communities, because many of us have capital in our communities. It doesn't allow us to do anything, right? And that's the issue. You know, we have capital in our communities, because if I had, let's say I got reparations, I get with Omni and say, what we doing? What we doing? I'm gonna get in contact with Omni and say, man, what we doing? Because I got the money to back it now. Okay, we gonna roll out these shooters out. Let's go. Because I got the money to back up the play now. See what I'm saying? So that's what I see. I see a lot of people that have very good entrepreneur ability, but because of a certain scenarios like this, they can't get the backing that they need to really scale out. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the issues, right? So CJ, like I said, we're not gonna do the red herring argument. CJ, we just talked about that. But I want to say blessings to you, man. Have a good 2023. So that's pretty much gonna be it. I appreciate everybody for coming through. And Ebony, well, let me get the super chat from Ebony because I know it's delayed. Appreciate the $50 super chat. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's the goal, because a lot of these conversations that I'm having on YouTube, I have with people, but we're not having it on YouTube. But so like I have individual people I can speak to and talk about it. Like, you know, I can get the urban homesteader on and he can give me a very in-depth understanding of the tech space. Like he taught me about ASML. I didn't even know that company even existed. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that this company even existed. And I didn't know where this stuff was coming from. So what I try to do is curate a network of people that have really good information that can benefit me. Because I don't need nobody telling me about women and stuff. That stuff to me is not like that important, right? But everybody's at different stages of development in their life. So for some people, that's very important. They want to learn about that. So I try to bring on what I think can be beneficial that's a little bit more alternative than to talking about the same thing, because I think that's going to get me attention. Because if I really wanted to get attention on here, I just get on here and talk about relationships and talk about Black people. And I have a blazing channel. Like I have, 60, 70,000 views per video. I don't see how that gets me what I want. And I'm not here just to get attention, right? That's not attention from people on YouTube is not that big of a deal. I wish I had more viewers, but I know what come with that. Because some of these people is weird, right? I'm not talking about the people that's watching, but yeah, some of these people is weird, like real weird. They just do weird stuff. I don't know what's going on with them. But I appreciate the $50 super chat. So everybody, want to encourage you to go out here, work with your people, do the best thing for yourself. Make sure y'all be safe. We're going into a holiday weekend. So make sure y'all stay safe and, be observant of what's going on around you. And we're going to see if them Bucks can pull that win off on Monday. All right. Talk to y'all later.